G'day guys, welcome back to the Boundary Riders podcast, episode 148, and with opening round fast approaching, we have a lot to talk about today. We're going to be taking a look at an injury update regarding a lot of teams around the league, the AFL potentially being in the Olympics in some shocking developments. We're also going to be taking a look at both my brother and I's ladder predictions for 2026 and much, much more. So let's roll the intro and get straight into it. Welcome to the Boundary Riders podcast, your one-stop shop for all your AFL content needs. He looks at his options and Jack Ginnivan says, boys, you brought me to the club to do just this! But this guy has flog written all over him.
From attack down, Reed sprints away from Petrarca, leaves him in his wake, takes a second bounce, takes a third. The sheer arrogance of Harley Reid. Finish the job, young man!
So let's get into the footy news from the week that was. So guys, my brother has graced us with his presence today, and I mean, have you bought your grand final tickets yet? A big win against the West Coast Eagles in a match sim.
100%, you know, we lose like all the important stats of the forward half, and yet we still win by 70 odd points. I think, you know, it's guaranteed last Saturday in September.
I mean, I'm thinking that's probably going to be what Port Adelaide. I mean, it's going to be a failure if they don't make it to that point.
You might as well just, you know, pencil in the grand final, and Butters will sign on the dotted line as well. You might as well just put it both on there, just guarantee it right about now.
So who do you think Port are going to be playing in the grand final? You got Melbourne, who had a pretty good pre-season.
I don't know. I think North Melbourne. I think that last game they played in their pre-season game, I thought that was very... it
was a real steely end to their game. You know, they really held strong against the VFL Pies.
Oh, I think it was the VAFA Collingwood
VAFA Pies. It was... Anyway, I mean, I think there are some takeaways you can take from pre-season, obviously, but yeah, I mean, I think some people are being a little... There are some, obviously, people going a little bit over the top, but I will say Kane Corns' comments regarding the West Coast Eagles, I kind of think they're fair. Like...
yeah, I think they're strong, but they're fair, but because you look at, like, even last year, West Coast actually won both their pre-season games, and they finished last with one win.
Yeah,
they lost both of their games, and they were humiliated against Port Adelaide. How many they supposed? I mean,
it's funny they won more games in pre-season last year than the actual campaign. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be you can't take that into, you know, a massive watch for the rest of the season. Like, you can't think that pre-season's going to mean everything. Like, a lot of teams last year who performed well in pre-season actually didn't do well at all. Like, I think the Sydney had the best record out of the pre-season, and obviously they finished 10th, and they ended the season very poorly. So yeah, I mean, I think that right now, I think the pre-season obviously has to be done, but you got to take it with a grain of salt. And I mean, we'll get to the ladder predictions a little bit later, but yeah, I mean, I don't think my ladder predictions have changed too much, or my feeling of the season towards teams has changed a lot from the pre-season matches. But there are a couple of players that have really impressed me. Is there any team that you've been looking at that you've been like, okay, I've changed a lot of my feelings around them after pre-season matches?
I think you kind of have to look at the teams that, you know, are on maybe their last chance in the Blues and the Dogs. Their coaches are both in the hot seat to start the year, and you're looking at Fremantle. But for me, I was looking at Carlton and the Dogs, really, because you're looking at the ball movement of Carlton has been horrible for years. The inside 50 entries have been horrible for years. And then you look at the Dogs with their defense. You're trying to look at all of those players, and you know, you're looking at like the rookies that are coming through for both of those teams, and you know, Jagger Smith and Harry Dean. And then you're looking at, you know, some of the rookies for them, for the Dogs, like what I can't remember his first name, but Jax,
Lockie Jax. Yeah,
I thought he was
even Buku Kamas, who played brilliantly in defence in the preseason games. Obviously, he'd want to improve. He'd want to show some good games in his the regular season, and he's going to have to if the Bulldogs are going to improve down in defence. But someone who didn't really get a go last year, played a lot of VFL football up forward, and I think I mentioned it to you sometime last year before he stayed at the Dogs. Obviously, he tried to go to Carlton. He is a defender. I don't know why they keep on trying to make him a forward. And the thing is as well, they have so many forwards already, the Western Bulldogs. There's no need to try and play this guy in defence. Play this guy up forward. There's no need for it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think they've finally found his spot, and hopefully he holds that for the rest of the season. Because I think he can be that Alir sort of type, that guy who can, you know, play that third tall. I think that sort of a player is someone that the Dogs kind of need. They do need someone to lock down. I think that's probably going to be James O'Donnell this year, which I don't really I don't really rate him that highly, but I think that they do need that intercept defender as well. Someone they've kind of missed is like an Easton Wood type. I think that he can probably play that going forward. That'll be an interesting watch. But let's talk about some injury updates because, I mean, we've been talking about the injury updates all summer basically, and I mean, just because the season's starting does not mean that stops. Hayden Young today left training early with a apparent ankle and foot injury. I mean, hold your breath, Fremantle fans. I don't know any updates on this at the moment, but not good signs for a guy who is someone who needs his ankle and foot to run and is going to be needs to use that lethal left foot, and someone who was out for pretty much a whole season last year.
Yeah, and Justin Longmuir was probably praying that's not serious either.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was definitely someone they missed last year, so that he can't be out for long. Looking at the Dogs, does seem there are a couple of concerns regarding Treloar, Sam Darcy, and Bailey Dale, all tests for this week. I'd be surprised if Bailey Dale plays, and Treloar's a bit of a wait and see for mine. I feel like they'll push Darcy through.
Yeah, I think the other two, Treloar's had too many injuries in the last couple of years since he's been to the Dogs. And with Bailey Dale, he's such a weapon in the back line. You don't want to really take the risk of making it more of a serious injury.
I'd probably try Lockie Jackson his first game, give him a go, see how he goes. I mean, you're going up to Queensland. I mean, I'm not saying like you don't give it a try. Like obviously you go your hardest, but I mean, if you lose an opening round, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world for the Dogs. I mean, if they can fight a good fight, I think leaving Bailey Dale back in Victoria for the week won't be the worst thing in the world getting ready for round one.
Yeah, and especially with the humidity that the Queensland weather will bring, you're more likely to risk a serious injury to Bailey Dale if you play him.
Yes, but I mean, if he does a soft tissue injury and is out for a couple of months, that's way worse than him just missing out on opening round. Looking at Richmond, looking at their injury list at the moment, Noah Bolter seems that he will be available for round one, which is good for the Tigers.
Just make sure he doesn't go to a nightclub or anything.
Knock someone's teeth out.
Knock someone's teeth out before round one.
Yeah, speaking of that, what's his name? Stephen May retired, which was very interesting that he just retired out of the blue. I mean, obviously,
it's been in the works for the last couple.
I was surprised that he didn't announce it last year, to be fair.
Yeah, when Stephen King's basically saying you're not in there, but you were basically playing VFL.
Yeah,
it's kind of like if he didn't get picked up in a trade or anything, you kind of was seeing
I think maybe he was contracted, which is why he kind of stayed on, get that payout. Respect that, but anyway. Nick Vlaston, Dion Prestia seem to have tests written next to their name, so we'll have to wait and see if they're going to be available for round one. Dion Prestia, a hamstring injury, I'm shocked, as most people around the league would be at the moment. So looking at a couple of their younger guys, Taj Houghton is going to be a to be continued. I think we've heard around 4 months at the moment, so 3 to 4 months for him. So that's mid-season, I'd say. Sam Cumming as well, looking like 2 months maybe, which is sad news because he had a really good pre-season for the Tigers, really high draft pick, so sad news there. And then we've got a bit of an update on Josh Smiley, 6 to 10 weeks. I mean, are we ever going to see this guy play? I mean, we want to see him.
He could be that, sad, Tom Boyd... Paddy McCartan type that just never could get it on the field.
I hope that's not the case because he was touted as one of the best prospects from. I mean, the
draft year they were expecting him actually to be at the start of that year. He was supposed to be number 1 pick.
Yeah,
and
he drifted out to pick 7. It went to the Tigers still, but I mean that was the dream draft as well. You have the Lawler, all those great players in that draft, and unfortunately he just hasn't been able to get going. So probably not going to expect him until best gather round, but that's also dependent on I'm assuming he'll have to go back to the VFL as well. Looking at St Kilda, Cal Wilkie seems all good to go for against the Pies, so that's really good news. Jack Silvani still in concussion protocols, but is a test, so I think he'll be fine for opening round against Collingwood as well. The other player on this list is Liam Henry, out for 6 to 7 weeks with a hamstring. I mean, he's one who just hasn't been able to get running for the Saints really at all.
Yeah, and when he's actually been fit, he's just never been he's just on the injury list. They just don't the emergency list. Sorry. So yeah, he's not breaking into it.
He's not breaking into their best 23.
Not at the moment, no.
And Max King, once again, written TBC next to his name on the injury list. I mean, he is sitting back with one of the highest paid players in the game, just fucking soaking it all in. He's literally...
He's loving it, probably.
I would be.
In a way. Doing basically in the rehab room, not playing at the highest level.
Imagine you pick...
Picking the paycheck.
You had a choice of the twins. You pick Ben or you pick Max. And then I think they picked Max first, I'm pretty sure. Who was picked first? Was it Max or Ben?
I think it was Max.
Yeah, I feel like it was Max
yeah.
King.
Yeah.
I mean, a bit unlucky, but I mean, you could have a 70-goal kicker on your list, or you could have a guy sitting in the change rooms getting paid a huge amount of money.
I'm pretty sure St Kilda fans are pretty pissed. The fact is that he's getting paid so much for not playing, but
Yeah.
you know.
I mean, imagine
living on potential when you actually seen the potential of Ben King every week in Gold Coast.
Yeah, I mean, you could have also, chucked a couple of extra bucks on Naz's contract. Maybe you would have stayed an extra year or two on the contract. But anyway, Collingwood have confirmed that both Darcy Moore and Jeremy Howe have been ruled out for opening round. So that's not really too surprising. We kind of knew that was going to happen anyway. But I mean, we'll be showing our tips for the first time this for the season in the podcast. So get tuned for that. But that was a big decision on my choice of tips anyway. On GWS, we've got Brent Daniels, who's going to be out for the first month of football, which is sad news for the Giants, and pelvic soreness has seen Aaron Cadman will be out for the opening round clash against Hawthorn. Now, looking at Hawthorn as well, Tom Barras is a test with some general soreness. I think he'll be fine. Cam McKenzie is 1 week out because of concussion, so he'll obviously be back in round 1 against the Bombers. Looking at Essendon, Sullivan Roby still has a back complaint, is out for 1 week, so may debut in round 1.
I wouldn't think with that. You'd think you'd need a bit more time with such a rookie player.
Yeah, I would too. Isaac Kako out for 1 to 3 with a hamstring. Jordan Ridley out for 4 to 5. I mean, he stayed at the club because he's like, I think they've got it right now. Nah, bro.
Nah, you still got the injuries, mate.
Yeah, sorry, mate. You're still with Essendon, mate. You're going to be sitting on the injury list for the year. And Will Setterfield on this list as well is out with a foot. So they've re-signed him after delisting him. And now he's sitting on the injury list. And finally, on Carlton's point of view, Jagger Smith and Harry Dean have been confirmed that they will debut for the Blues, which is really exciting. I'm assuming that we'll probably hear Ollie Florent and Will Hayward will be first time in Blues colours as well.
Yeah.
Francis Evans and Nick Haynes will be out for opening round, so they will be back between round 1 and round 3. Adam Chera and Matt Cottrell will be out until round 3 or round 4.
And Jacob Wiedering is playing.
Yeah, Jacob Wiedering as well. He has been confirmed to be in for the Blues. That's pretty much all the injury updates we have, but looking at every single SSP signing throughout the summer, of course, Jaden Stevenson for Port Adelaide was the bit of a shock one for mine. But he is playing at Coburg now for the VFL season. So I think he can probably get another go next year, but his age is getting up there now.
I think we were saying this last week that he was playing in the low. I think he's playing the lower leagues to really get the continuity of games experience. I know.
I mean, he needs to be playing at least VFL football to be seen.
So I think that's why it's a decision for him to get a chance at the VFL level for a year.
Yeah, see how he goes. But these SSP signings include for Carlton, Wade Dirksen and Elijah Hollands, of course, getting back to the club. I think Wade Dirksen's a pretty underrated pickup for mine. He played really well in that.
Well, it kind of seems funny now that he could have been at Melbourne and now Stephen May's retired, and yet now that looks like a...
I feel like they would have picked him up if they could have had the chance. But yeah, I mean, and even the Giants, like, obviously never really tried him down back. He played really well in that preseason game for the Blues against the Cats. Looking at Fremantle, Mason Cox and Chris Skerry were the two SSP signings. Of course, Mason Cox was way back in, I think, October or November last year. Same with Jaden Laverde, who went to the Giants. Flynn Perez, I think, was the last or second to last player confirmed to go to the Hawks. Imagine getting delisted by North Melbourne and then now potentially going to a premiership contender. And I think he'll probably sit in the VFL for a little bit, but...
Yeah.
Definitely a massive signing for them, and he played really well last year in the Sandful for South Adelaide, I believe. He's definitely one of the top.
So
yeah, it was either South or Sturt. I can't remember which one, but Paddy Cross has signed with Melbourne. Tom Blamrez, I can't remember his name. That's so bad at me because he played really well in that last preseason game for North Melbourne, and I'm really excited to watch him. Another Werribee product as well. For Port Adelaide, Balin O'Brien and Mitch Zato, the what do you call him, a cult hero? He's definitely he's got a bit of cult status about him.
Well, he was at home. He was in WA, his home state, and then he gets the
Zato.
Yeah.
Zato. I love that. Hopefully he gets a couple of games early. Thomas Burton for the Tigers was their last signing. The West Coast Eagles just had a plethora of players, including Finlay McRae, Devon Robertson, Harry Schonberg, and then Will Lewis and Milan Murdoch have recently re-signed as SSP players for the West Coast Eagles. So, big on the West Coast. That last game, though, pre-season was not great. I did like the look of Devon Robertson, though.
Yeah, I think he's coming from a premiership team. He couldn't crack into the team, so he was always on the fringes, the emergency list. He's always maybe pick. He's in the best 20. He's been the best 27, 28 players in that team. He'd always be on the emergency list. So
I was surprised they delisted him.
Yeah, but I think it was more the fact is that he's been lured back to WA so many times over the last couple of years. I think it was kind of like, if we don't play him, he's wanting to go home anyway.
Yeah, probably just get rid of him and he'll leave for nothing anyway. But I think that's definitely a good one. I think that's probably the pick of the bunch out of the SSP players for the West Coast Eagles. I'm really liking the look of the one from North Melbourne. I keep on wanting to call him Blamirez because it looks like Ramirez, but I know it's not that. Mason Cox played some decent football for Fremantle last week against the Crows, and Wade Dirksen I have liked as well. But yeah, I mean SSP signings, those are all the ones going into this season. But now let's talk about the big talking point of the week, which I thought was anyway, the AFL and the Olympics. So a big push from Andrew Dillon. I think he announced this actually today, that he wants to try and get the AFL into the Olympics in Brisbane for 2032. Now, I'm sure the initial thoughts are, this is ridiculous. There's no way this is going to happen because it's just an automatic gold medal to Australia. Is that kind of where you use it?
Yes.
Okay. So
yeah.
In his statement, he said, in reality, there's actually a precedent intact back in 1956 in Melbourne, where Australian rules football was the exhibition sport. I think our sport is a sport that should be on that stage, and we'll work closely with the Olympic Committee to see what it takes in what form. So I actually looked into this a little bit. So the AFL actually was played as a exhibition sport. So it was a demonstration basically showing at the Summer Olympics back in 1956. The Olympic Committee stipulated that each Summer Olympics host and organise a national game and a foreign sport organising from demonstration sports. Australian rules football was the national sport picked, of course, and baseball was chosen as the foreign sport. In accordance with Olympic eligibility rules, big word for me, participants were restricted to amateurs. So there was no league players in this sport, which forced organisers to pick selected squads made up of young stars, ageing veterans, and suburban league athletes. In front of 30,000 crowd spectators, the VAFA team actually caused an upset, winning by 26 points against a combined team featuring VFL players and VAFA players. So VFA players. So basically, if I think it's going to be an Olympic sport, the only way to make it somewhat fair for any other competition, any other country would have to be that it's amateurs for Australia. So, because I mean, if you call it amateurs anyway, any other country in the world who would field a team would be amateur players anyway.
Yeah.
So I think the only way that they would be able to do it is to have amateur players play for Australia, which even so, I still think Australia would kill anyone.
Oh yeah, I think even if you play your under 20s team,
you could chuck players from VAFA and easily kill a bunch of competition. I do like the idea to try and get it on the global stage. Like the Olympics is one of the biggest events, obviously, for sport, and it would get a lot of eyeballs on the sport, which would be great. But it does beg the question how competitive it would be. I mean, it would be great to see other countries play against each other on the grand stage of it. I think that'd be awesome. And if there was a way to get players from Ireland, who are from Ireland, obviously, playing for the Irish team, who are at AFL level playing against some amateur Australians, that actually could bring something to it. I don't mind that idea, but it's going to be very interesting to see if, let's say in some world that it does happen, that the AFL does go to the Olympics, how they would facilitate it, that it would be how it would work, that it makes it somewhat competitive, because no one wants to go and see Australia just 200-3 dominate every country in the world.
Yeah, it wouldn't be really much of a gold medal performance. It would be more of a, they'll guarantee it anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's what makes the Olympics good, is because, you see maybe by some miracle there is a country that knocks off Australia. And I mean, I would probably, you obviously want your country to win medals, but it would be amazing if someone just knocked off Australia. I mean, that's why we want the international rules back. I mean, I think AFL on a global stage is something that we'd all want to see. And even though the international rules against Ireland isn't AFL, it's still AFL adjacent, I guess.
Yeah.
Like it's still AFL, and that I really love it. Like it's the only real international way we see AFL players on that stage, and I don't really think that this would be a way to have AFL players play internationally, because I just can't see a way where it makes it anywhere near fair.
Yeah.
So I think what they would go down the route of is only amateurs could perform in it, and that means that Australia would just have to field a bunch of maybe VAFA players, maybe like lower league SA players, because I think we have the South Australian League. I can't remember what they call it. Is it the South Australian Association Football League underneath the SANFL? I'm pretty sure it's something like that.
SAFA. I think it's just the SAFA, that South Australian Football.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything else with it, but yeah, I don't know. I think even if you try and like blood the kids like under 18s team or like under 20s team sort of things, like represented across Australia that don't play in the AFL, I don't know, something like that. So then, you know, you get some different sort of players, different people that you get, and then they can showcase what they've got. And, you know, it's the summer, so they can, you know, I don't know, you probably get some Australians through the, you know.
I think that would be a good way to showcase the next draft potential, you know, draftees. I think that would be a good idea. I mean, I think we've voiced it many times on the podcast, in that the AFL doesn't push the draft class out to the people, like to the public, very well. I mean, it's almost like on draft night or a week before the draft, like you start to learn the names of like Willem Dersma or whatever. I mean, we obviously knew him, but then we don't know like the next 5 picks. Like we may know maybe 2 or 3 from the draft, and someone who's going to be either a father's son or someone that's going to be a academy pick. But that's pretty much all we know.
Yeah, because if you don't have the reporters that do it, like in Kaltumi, who actually do it, you don't hear anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's what you got. Kaltumi, Riley Beveridge, you see a couple of Instagram accounts that do it, I think Craft the Draft, but you'd barely see anyone talk about it. So maybe that would be a way to showcase it. I don't know why we moved into like talking about the draft or whatever, but that's something that, I mean, I would like it, because I think it would push it to an international stage, the AFL to the from the Olympics. I think that could be a good idea, but they've got to make it somewhat competitive, because if they do just say that anyone can play, I mean, I don't even know if the AFL would like play that many of the good players anyway. I mean, they probably would play a few of them to showcase it, but maybe like chuck in a Bontempelli if he's still playing then, or something like that. But I doubt that they'd play like they would probably use amateurs, I would say. I think even below, I still think below VFL SANFL level would probably be somewhat fair. But even then, I still think Australia would win the gold. Which, I mean, I'm not opposed to. But make it be the final sport of the Olympics. You know, they have like the basketball for the gold medal or something towards the end. I think we have AFL football at the gold medal match right at the end, just before the closing ceremony. Perfect way to end the Olympics in 2032 in Brisbane. I wonder how Peter V'landys will feel about the AFL being in the Olympics.
Oh, he's already hated everything else.
Well, I do think though that pushing like that round, that the 2 games that they had in Las Vegas or whatever, I still think the AFL should try and pursue something like that, because there would be a lot of people in Australia.
Well, there were so many people like that at those games.
Yeah. I
saw highlights. The second tier was literally gone. Was literally better there.
Yeah, so, but I mean, at least it gets people in America at least seeing the colours. Like, I mean, they would know rugby league a little bit more than AFL, and I mean, I think I would potentially think about going. You know, I mean, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity playing for points. I'd much rather that than China, but. You know, we'll see what happens. And let's get into the preview to opening round. Let's get into the first game we're going to be taking a look at for opening round. Of course, opening night, the Swans up against Carlton. The grudge match for Charlie Curnow, of course, in the massive off-season signing for the Sydney Swans. But of course, Carlton have a few of their own players that want to get some revenge against their former team. Now, this game, I think, will have a lot of feeling throughout the entire game from the opening bounce. A couple of injury clouds for both teams. Wiedering and Errol Goulden are the 2 that come to mind. However, both teams have pretty much confirmed that both of them should be fine for the game, but I did just want to bring that up quickly just in case they are left out of the team. Now, both teams, of course, missed finals last year, and even though Carlton are tipped to miss the finals this year as well, they were actually able to win both their pracky matches against the grand finalists from last year, which I think has brought a lot of optimism around the Blues. Now, the Swans, on the other hand, have been tipped to be the big risers this year by a lot of people, and after a very disappointing first season under Dean Cox, the Swans, of course, went on a big spending spree in the off-season, picking up Jai Sarong, Malcolm Roses, and of course, Charlie Curnow. So it's a lot of unknown around the Sydney Swans as well, but most people are expecting them to jump back up into the ladder. But now to my tip, and I will be picking the Sydney Swans. I think they go into this one as favourites, rightfully so, with the big off-season spending spree, and they've had a very good pre-season as well. The Blues have been very good in this off-season with what they've been able to conjure up in this pre-season, of course, and their pracky matches, they look very good. I want to see how they go against the Swans on opening round. I think it will be a closer game than some people expect, but I do see the Swans coming out on top in the end. After that, we get to the Gold Coast against Geelong on Friday night. Now, a lot of players are under injury clouds or just ruled out for Geelong. You've got Jeremy Cameron, Bailey Smith, Brian Myers, Shannon Neal, and Tyson Stengel, just to name a few. And for the Gold Coast, haven't exactly performed brilliantly in their preseason matches, losing both of their games, and there's a lot of pressure on them, with many people tipping them to be top 4 certainties this year, if not premiership favourites. So I'm really looking at this one as a pretty big midfield battle. The Gold Coast have all the big names now. Geelong could be depleted in there, so it'll be a very interesting watch, and both respective forward lines are going to be pretty big in this game. You've got a couple of the tall timber at the Gold Coast in Ben King and Jamari Ugle-Hagan. Of course, he's a big talking point as well. We'll see if they go with 3 talls or potentially 4. I would be surprised if they go with 4, so it probably means that Jed Walter and Ethan Reid will be fighting for that final spot. But on Geelong's point of view, a lot of injuries, and if Shannon Neal is out as well, it's going to be very intriguing to see how the Cats line up in their forward line this week. So getting to my tip in this game, for a couple of reasons, I'm going to be picking the Gold Coast. First of all, even though they didn't do very well in their pracky matches, I believe that they have a lot better of a list at the moment to pick from, as the Cats have a lot of injury problems. And also for the fact that the Cats have had a shorter pre-season, because they obviously made it to the grand final, that they had a later start to the pre-season, that I believe the Gold Coast will be a little bit more fresher. And playing up in the Gold Coast in those conditions, I think that they will get the job done. Next up, we move to the GWS Giants up against Hawthorn. Of course, a rematch of the elimination final from last year where Hawthorn got out on top. The Giants, first of all, have massive injury problems. You're looking at Sam Taylor, Tom Green, Toby Bedford, Darcy Jones, Brent Daniels, and Lee Kalia are all out of this game, or likely absentees for the Giants, while Hawthorn are relatively healthy going into this game, except for Will Day, who is set to miss half the season. Now, GWS performed well against the Young Pies a couple of weeks ago and fought a good fight against the Swans last week, but couldn't get it over the line. While on Hawthorn, they've looked okay in this preseason so far, but I think their midfield looks incredibly shoddy without Will Day. In these pracky matches, they got absolutely sliced and diced against the Cats at times in that game, and then lost to the Western Bulldogs when they had a really good side. So if the Giants can expose their midfield and get the ball forward enough to Jesse Hogan to kick some goals, and a couple of other forwards, Toby Green, if he goes up there, may even play a little bit of midfield this year. But if they can get enough opportunities up forward, the Giants, and I see them getting a chance in this game. So getting to my tip in this one, I'm going to be going with Hawthorn. With too many injuries for the Giants, I think they're going to struggle for the early parts of this year, and I can't see them getting the job done in this game. Although, one thing that will be going in the Giants' favour is the fact that they've won both their opening round encounters in the first few years of the introduction of opening rounds, so maybe that will work in their favour, but I'm still going with the Hawks. After that, we get to Brisbane up against the Western Bulldogs. Now, the Lions haven't exactly looked absolutely at their best in the pracky games, which isn't exactly a massive deal, but I did want to bring that up. They did get a win against the Gold Coast in their last outing, and previously they did lose to the Blues, but I still think that they are going to be a team right up there at the end of the season if you've seen the predictions that I've made through the last few weeks. While on the Dogs, they did look a lot better last week against Hawthorn with all their players back, and I think that, and when the Bulldogs are at full strength, they are going to be a very hard team to beat this year, but if they do get a couple of injuries, I think they may struggle. So there's going to be a couple of watches on here. Obviously, Bailey Dale's going to be likely out for this game, so that is a big out for the Bulldogs. While on the Lions' point of view, they look relatively healthy at the moment. A couple of players out, but not anyone massively of note for a massive part of the campaign. But there are a couple of players that will be out, probably the biggest being Sam Draper and Eric Hipwood. But moving to my tip in this one, I am going to be going with Brisbane. This is probably my most tentative one of the round for mine. I think that the Lions could be in a bit of trouble in the early games of the year. Haven't exactly looked at their best so far, and yes, it's only pracky matches, and I still believe the Lions will be right up there at the end of the season, but I do believe that they look a little bit sluggish at the moment, so I think they may be off to a bit of a rough start at the start of the campaign, but I'm going to be going with the Lions in this game. But now let's move to the final game of opening round. It is at the MCG, St Kilda up against Collingwood. Now the Saints have looked absolutely brilliant so far in their pracky matches with comfortable wins, while Collingwood have almost put all their stars on ice for one of the two games, so it's kind of hard to gauge how they're going so far. Lots of pressure on these teams though going into this
this game to get their first win. St Kilda, of course, after their big off-season recruiting drive, picking up the likes of De Koning, Flanders, Ryan, and Silvani. It's going to be a very big watch on the Saints' point of view. So they want to show all their great players off in style with a good win at the MCG. While Collingwood would want to start well, or the outside noise is just going to get even louder as they're too old or too slow. But to my final tip of the round, and I'm going to be going with St Kilda. I've loved how they've looked so far in this pre-season, and if I'm being honest, Collingwood look a little bit banged up right now. They've got a couple of injuries with Darcy Moore and Jeremy Howe, the Pies, so I'm a little bit cautious about their defence. And we saw last year when Jeremy Howe was out that the Collingwood defence really struggled to stand up, and with Darcy Moore out as well, I think St Kilda's forward line can get on top, which is probably their weakest line. I like St Kilda's midfield mix so far in this preseason. I think their defense is much better than Collingwood's forward line, so I'm going to be picking the Saints. But now, guys, of course, let's get to our full tips for the round along with my brother's tips for the round. First of all, we go with my tips. I am tipping the Swans over the Blues in the first game of the opening round. I'm picking the Gold Coast over Geelong, Hawthorn over the Giants away from home, Brisbane over the Dogs, and finally I'm picking the Saints over Collingwood. And my brother's tips for opening round are the Swans to beat Carlton, Gold Coast to beat Geelong, Hawthorn to beat GWS, Brisbane to beat the Dogs, and Collingwood to beat the Saints. So next up, let's get to our ladder predictions. So I've done mine a few weeks ago. I'll quickly go through mine and then we'll go through yours, compare the pair. So my ladder predictions, this was made a couple of weeks ago. I went with Brisbane in first, Freo in second, Geelong in third, Hawthorn in fourth, Crows in fifth, Sydney in sixth. Getting into the wildcard spots, I've got the Gold Coast in seventh, Collingwood in eighth, GWS in ninth, Western Bulldogs in 10th, which means the Gold Coast would play the Bulldogs and Collingwood would play the Giants. And then just outside the wildcard spots, we have St Kilda in 11th, Port Adelaide in 12th, North Melbourne in 13th, Carlton 14th, Richmond 15th, Melbourne 16th, Essendon 17th, and then West Coast at the bottom of the ladder. Now, let's go through your ladder predictions because we have a few different. So you've got Hawthorn up the top, Brisbane in second, Crows in third, Freo in fourth, Gold Coast in fifth, Sydney in sixth, Geelong in 7th, Dogs in 8th, Collingwood in 9th, St Kilda in 10th, Port Adelaide in 11th, GWS in 12th, Carlton 13th, Richmond 14th, North Melbourne 15th, Melbourne 16th, Essendon 17th, and West Coast at the bottom. So I think there's a couple different from what you did, 2 months ago?
Yeah, I think I went through I basically went through every game and actually just wrote it down of who's going to win and who's not and just try to figure it out that way. I thought that was just in a way, an easy, well, not maybe an easier way, but maybe a more, maybe an easier way to figure it out in a way.
So you went through who's basically over-unders, who's going to get the most amount of, on wins. Yeah. So there are a couple of teams I want to look at here. So you got the Crows in the top 4, so that's pretty high.
I think it's hard to say that the Crows lose any home games this year. So you've got the 12 or 13 home games with the 2 showdowns and gather round. So you've probably got 13 home games, which they should win.
Yeah.
And you've got also the away games against some really bad teams or some really teams that, I think some games at Marvel, with the way they play their game, I think will be more electric, and they as you've seen, they can pile on the points.
Yeah.
So I think those sort of teams, and they've had a pretty steady defense, so I think you wouldn't be surprised if they finish in the top 4 with the amount of home games they'll get.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair enough. You got the Gold Coast in 5th. I've got them in 7th position. So with you, do you believe that the Gold Coast are a chance to be right up the top, or do you think that they will probably sit around that 4th to 5th to 8th spot?
I think they'll be 5th to 8th. Everyone thinks they're their premiership favourites or their top 4. It's that they haven't proven anything. They've proven once that they can win a final. They still haven't proven over time that they can win the big games. They haven't won at Adelaide Oval ever. They haven't won in big game. They struggle against the Giants every season. They don't beat Brisbane every game in the derbies. They haven't proven to me that they can win consistently in the big games. Yeah.
I think also as well, going towards the end of last season in the minor rounds, they dropped right off. Yeah, and they still had to win that last game against Essendon to actually secure their spot in finals.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, they won that. I feel like a lot of people forget about that. They only just scraped in the end.
Yeah.
And yes, they won that final against Fremantle, and that was great for their history, and that they finally won a final. But they scraped into it. And yes, Petrarca is a big signing. Jamara, I mean, obviously the potential is there, but hasn't shown a lot so far. So we're going to have to wait and see how good a preseason he actually has had and how good he's going to go this campaign. So that's one thing. But it's going to be a very interesting watch on the Gold Coast. I don't believe they are a premiership favourite at the moment. I think they're probably sitting just outside the 4. I'm sitting around the wild card spots at the moment for them as well. Now, you've got Fremantle up the top, Hawthorn up the top, and Brisbane up the top. I think that's a lot of people would say. Some people are kind of off Hawthorn now with a lot of with the injuries in their thin midfield. I'm still sitting that they're going to be right up there.
Yeah, I think you got to actually look at it, is that I look at their defense, and Sicily had a poor year last year. Battle and Barras were in their first year in their new team. I think their connection is going to be even stronger this year. Sicily having less responsibility, being co-captains now, I think will help them. Impey and Carl Amon in the back half was a big difference with Josh Weddle. I think their defense can hold up a lot better than a fair amount of other teams. I think there's a lot of potential there for them. It's just that they don't have a lot of midfield depth, which is sometimes you always see that Sam Mitchell can actually figure it out, as you've seen over time.
I think as well, like people talk about they're missing out on their stars, and that's totally fair. But out of the 3 main positions, you've got defence, forward, midfield, and then you got the ruckman. But the midfield is, I think, you can chuck a lot of people through there and they can do the job. Like, you need to have a very good midfield, obviously. But if you can chuck some players that, if you're missing out on your best key defender and your best key forward, you're going to struggle throughout the season. Well, if you're missing, your best midfielder, depending on who it is, Will Day obviously is tough, but they have been without him for a long time.
Yeah.
James Worpel being out, obviously moving to Geelong, probably does hamper them as well. I do get that. And John Newcombe being out in opening round with suspension likely is not great.
Well, if the one team I look at is last year with the Crows, everyone was bagging their midfield, yet they finished on top of the ladder.
Yeah.
They had one of the best defense, and their forward line could put on 150 points on the board.
Yeah.
So their midfield, everyone was saying was lackluster, and it was.
And I mean, it got called out in finals.
Yeah, it got called out in finals, but it doesn't mean that in the home and away season they finished top. Yeah. So they, on the potential of that, and Will Day coming back, will hopefully come back and play a fair amount of games in the late part of the year. I think they can still do it.
Yeah. Now, you've got in the wildcard spots, you've got the Cats, Dogs, Collingwood, and St Kilda. Now, you had the Bulldogs up in 5th spot when you last did your ladder prediction, I think. It was pretty high up there. Now you've dropped them down to 8th. What's the change there? You think you predicted them a bit high? Or?
I think I predicted them a bit too high in a few games. I think there was just a few games that they will struggle against. I think they rely so much on their midfield and their forward line that their defense is I just haven't seen enough of their defense to trust that they can stop teams and on the better side of it.
Yeah, and then you got Geelong in 7th, so you're expecting a bit of a drop off.
You don't get flogged by 10 goals in a grand final and perform the next year. It's always been the curse of a grand final when you
Swans
lose.
Are pretty good at that.
Yeah, when you lose a grand final by I think it's 60 points, isn't it? Or it's 48 points or 8 goals, whatever it is. That when you get that the next year, you do struggle.
Yeah,
and,
I just can't put Geelong lower. I just had them in 3rd spot. I feel weird putting them lower, but I mean, I definitely can see a world where they drop off. Now you've got Collingwood a bit lower in 9th spot. I mean, I think a lot of people have got them sitting around that wild card spot this year.
They've got no one coming through really that I can believe that if they get 3 or 4 injuries to their key players, I don't see them being able to, in a way.
Their depth will be tested very quickly if they lose. I mean, they've already got Howe out and Darcy Moore, and they're putting a lot of, they're already talking about, Joel Cochrane's coming in. So who?
Yeah.
Who's this guy? He could be a very good player, very well, could be. But, I mean, we've never heard of this guy. He's never played a game, and all of a sudden they're talking up the hype of this guy when we've barely heard a lick of a word unless you're a huge Collingwood fan.
Yeah, and the other reason that I've done it as well is that Jamie Elliott kicked 60 goals last year at plus 30 he is. Are we really going to rely on him kicking 50 goals?
Yeah.
And, you got Tim Membrys and other forwards around him. It's what Dean McStay and Jack Buller and all that.
Can anyone honestly say, even without Jamie Elliott last year, they wouldn't have even got anywhere near those amount of goals, and they may have lost a few more other games. But you also look at it as well, before last year, could anyone have predicted that Jamie Elliott was going to get 60 goals?
No one would have put that on it.
So, I mean, maybe there is someone who just has a massive year for the Pies. But it's more than likely that you got to say that who is someone who's going to kick them that 50-goal margin? Who's, you kind of need that someone. I mean, Brisbane probably did buck the trend a bit, but even then they had Logan Morris kick a huge amount of goals throughout the campaign. They've got so many smalls. Collingwood really, I mean, Lockie Schultz kind of needs to come to the party if they're going to have a big year.
Well, and also the thing is what Craig McRae's been saying all pre-season is that they need more goals from the midfield. It's that, yeah, it's true, but your main source has to be that forward line. And we've seen with Melbourne in the past with their forward line, you can't rely on such a one-person player to do it all for you.
Yeah. I mean, when they won their premiership in 2021, the D's, they obviously had Tom McDonald who kicked 50-plus goals, and then they had Ben Brown, Bailey Fritsch, Cosy Pickett in his first year. And then, obviously, McDonald lost form, and then he lost his spot in the side, and then he quickly lost it. So Melbourne didn't, even when, obviously, Melbourne now, or a year ago, they didn't have a forward line. Collingwood at least had one or two, but now they're another year older. Bobby Hill's not going to probably play for the whole season. It's going to be very interesting to see where they find their goals. Like they'll beat up on the teams below them. They're too good a side. They've got too many big names. They'll be fine. But when they do get against those top teams in the competition, they're going to have to put a score on the board. And if they're playing a team like the Crows or the Gold Coast or Brisbane, are they going to be able to kick a high enough score to win the game? I don't know if they'll be able to. Now you got St Kilda floating in that last wildcard spot. You haven't joined the hype just yet of the Nasai Wanganeen Miller just absolutely creaming 4 goals in pre-season.
It was probably maybe just a bit funny that because when I was doing my ladder predictor, it's between Port and the Saints actually doing it to be in that wildcard spot. I went with the Saints probably because of the hype that they've got.
Yeah,
but I just
we've been sucked into the hype.
Yeah,
before.
I think I've been sucked into it before, but I put St Kilda there because if they don't make at least a wildcard spot, it's probably a failed year anyway because I think they have to win a final. But if they don't even make the wild,
you think they have to win a final?
I think they have to. I think they have to at least be in the final. I think they have to be close to winning a final. I think they have to at least be competitive in actually a final, not a wild card spot.
Oh, we're not counting them as finals. I don't care what Andrew Dillon says.
Yeah, but I think the hype of them actually having to do something this year, probably the first time they've ever had to in the last 15 years. I've put them in the wild card spot more than my team in Port Adelaide, but I can't really see them actually doing much else than that.
So I want to see them in the first couple of rounds of the year.
Yeah.
I want to see them beat Collingwood.
Yeah, that's
in
the
round-
first.
in
That's the
opening
first
round.
test, and they have to. That will be in front of 90,000 fans.
Probably predominantly Collingwood
Yeah.
fans. If they want to show what they're really made of, they go out in opening round and they go win.
Yeah,
There's no they got close. They need to win the game.
No, they need to
show
win.
that they've matured as a team and yes, Max King's not there, but he hasn't been there for a while now. You can't rely on him to kick your goals anymore.
yeah. I don't
They've
care
got
if it's 1 point. They just need to win.
Yeah.
That's they can play absolutely horrible for the first 2.5 quarters. They just have to win it on the night.
Exactly. And then finally, you've got the Giants dropping out the top, and I think you probably had them in your ladder predictor in the 8 or in the top.
I think I had them in a wildcard spot before. You've got too many injuries to such key pillars, and even seeing Cadman and Brett Daniels in the last week being out for a bit. Losing Tom Green is a big loss. Finn Callahan being injured a bit pre-season, same with Jesse Hogan and Sam Taylor as well. Like they're just so much to their key pillars. It's hard to see. We've seen Sydney last year get some injuries to key players. You don't recover if you start the season poorly.
Yeah, I mean, if they don't get off to a good start, just bank a couple of wins at the start of the season. If they can do that, maybe they can make a run. But the problem is they've got a lot of their best players out.
Yeah,
and their depth is already being tested. And they had some good performers in that last scratch match against the Swans, but when they're going to be tested, with all these players out, it's going to be super tough. They're already chucking Toby Green in the midfield. That's an interesting choice. We've seen it in the past, but he's also older now, and we know his best football is up forward.
Yeah.
So the fact they have to chuck him through there, Cornelio's one of their big midfielders now they have to try and rely on. It's going to be tough to see them, rally. Now, I've got them in 9th, so... this was made a couple of weeks ago. I'd probably drop them out right now and put St Kilda in. They're only inside the
top 10 by one win, I could easily drop them out.
Yeah, and I think also, as everybody talks about, is how Collingwood never travel, and the Giants always have to travel. It's when you winning games on the road, you need momentum, you need the continuity of the players and not injuries. With the Giants having so many, it's very hard to go out and win. Go to Perth.
Yeah, go to Perth. You got to go. Then the next week they're going back to Sydney, then over to Brisbane, then back to Melbourne,
then Adelaide, and they normally do 2 or 3 weeks around. They never play like in the first half of the season a lot with the Easter show and all that they talk about every year.
Yeah.
So it's very hard when you don't have a stable team.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I mean, I think the Giants could be one of the big drop-offs this year. I mean, people are talking about Collingwood, and that's more than fair, but the Giants with the injury list, it's just going to be tough. So I think they could be easily dropping, which is unfortunate. But yeah, guys, make sure to let us know down below what you think about our ladder predictions going into the year. Of course, these are 100% truthful. We'll be fighting out to see which ones is 100% right, and you guys can completely abuse us in the comments when they're wrong, because apparently this is supposed to be scientifically based, and like just the amount of people who go, actually, these predictions are completely wrong. It's like, yeah, bro, they're predictions. Of course, they're fucking wrong.
I'll always go back to 2024. Or was it 23 when Melbourne dropped off? I called it, and everyone's like bagging me, saying, "Oh, that's not going to happen." They won 10 games in a row last year, and they just dropped out the finals and shit like that. It's like it was going to happen. And guess what happened? It happened.
Yeah, and last year I predicted that the last 4 teams in the final. So look, we actually have some good, I don't know, we have a good record here. So you can bag us out all you want. That's completely fair. I think someone said last year, you're actually going to be surprised how good Essendon are going to be, and then they finished in the bottom.
Yeah, it was all injuries.
Yeah, it's all the injury. Oh, I know. It's like, I mean, it's just a bit of fun, but people take it so serious. But that's pretty much all we have for the footy stuff, guys. Thank you for listening to that. We will be going to our World Sports segment now, of course, though, and we shouldn't even put a World Sports segment anymore. It's really just the soccer segment. But we move to the Premier League, first of all, and Liverpool with a win. So, that's clutch of them. You think they can go title race now?
No. No, I'm not even going to say it. It's a two-horse race.
Yeah, Aston Villa. How do you lose to Wolverhampton, bro? I mean, I know, like they've been a bit better since Christmas, but not good enough.
Not that good. They haven't been that good.
Exactly, they haven't been that good. So with going back to the results throughout the week, Wolverhampton, like we mentioned, beat Aston Villa 2-0. Bournemouth and Sunderland played out a 1-1 draw. Brentford, after having a 3-0 lead, nearly choked it against Burnley, but then got a late goal to win 4-3.
Well, it was all in the first half that they were 3-0 up away, Brentford, and then I wouldn't be surprised if half the fans left from Burnley, and then somehow they came back and nearly won it.
Yeah, exactly. And then they bloody choked. They should have just held on. Fucking come on. You get 3 goals back and then lose it in the end. That's got to be heartbreaking, especially when you're in a relegation battle. That's one of the things you just keep your hopes up a little bit. Bit of high-scoring week in the Premier League, by the way. Liverpool winning 5-2 over West Ham. What a performance against the relegation battlers. Everton winning 3-2 over Newcastle. City winning 1-0 against Leeds United without Erling Haaland, so that's a massive win for them. Brighton winning 2-1 over Nottingham Forest. Fulham beating the relegation battlers in Tottenham 2-1. I can't believe they could be relegated, bro. Manchester United winning a 2-1 over Crystal Palace, and Arsenal beating Chelsea 2-1 as well. And Chelsea, as they have been doing throughout the whole entire season, got themselves a red card. So I'm really proud of my boys getting themselves another red. Fuck hell, bro. The amount of times this season they get themselves red carded over something so stupid. I think they are 2 red cards away from beating the all-time record red cards in Premier League games.
And there's 9 games?
There's Chelsea have 10 more games.
They're
going to beat the record. I feel like they can't make they can make Champions League because Aston Villa have dropped off so much, but yeah, it's not great. Now moving to the ladder or the table at the moment, Arsenal with 1 game in hand lead 5 points over Manchester City. So we expect the City probably get that back, and then it's only a 2-point race at the moment. Manchester United have jumped into 3rd. I'm not liking this Michael Carrick era. They're in 3rd.
I'll just say this: when they sign him as a permanent manager, that's when they will go down, because that's how it always happens.
Yeah, they always get the little bit of the honeymoon period when they sit there and they're like, but I mean, they still are undefeated.
Yeah, they are. In the last, they're 6 from 7 games.
And the draw. Yeah, 6-7, 6-7. Great. Our podcast sucks now. Aston Villa are sitting in 4th spot with 51 points as well. Liverpool sitting in a Europa League spot at the moment with 48 points. Chelsea sitting below them in 45 points. Brentford fighting out for European football with 43. Everton not too far away either with the 40, along with Fulham in 9th with the 40 as well. Bournemouth improving over the last month or so. They've jumped into 10th. Brighton are in 11th, who, even though they've had a pretty disappointing campaign, 11th isn't too bad. Sunderland have kind of fallen off a cliff, but they're lucky they've got enough points banked up. They should avoid relegation. They're on in 12th. Newcastle are in 13th. Crystal Palace are in 14th. They're lucky they banked enough points early. They're not playing very well as of late. Leeds United are sitting in 15th. They should be okay. Tottenham in 16th. Nottingham 17th. And then in the relegation battle, we have West Ham, Burnley, and Wolverhampton. So that relegation battle is still there. There are 6 points that split Leeds United and West Ham United. There are 6 points. It's going to be close. And it's finally an actual relegation battle where we can actually maybe get away to the last day.
Yeah, because like last season it was done by Christmas.
Yeah, I mean we knew it was all over.
And it's I did see a stat out today that after how many games has Tottenham played?
They played 28.
After 28 games, that Ange Postecoglou was actually doing better than Tottenham are this season. Even though I know they've only just transferred managers, but I just still think that's funny.
Yeah, I mean I understand why they got rid of him, obviously, but they still won him a title. That's the only trophy that's sitting in their fucking locker room right now that they can look at when they walk in after so many years. So I think maybe they could bring him back. That'd be exciting. After he called him, I don't think you kind of burned that bridge now, but that'd be exciting.
After his podcast
appearance,
not a big
club.
think he's gonna kick out. Yeah, and then Richarlison actually reposted it or something or liked it. Or,
did he?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Richarlison commented or something on that. Said they're not the big six club anymore.
Oh, they're definitely not.
Yeah, and he's still playing for him. It's bloody hilarious.
To be fair, I don't really know many other clubs are going to pick him up. He was in Everton for so long, and he was like a decent player for them. Like he scored a lot of goals, and then he moves to Tottenham, and they can't even play. He's not even in their best team. Now looking at the relegation battle, though. West Ham sitting in the relegation zone still. I mean, we keep on mentioning and keep on thinking that Nottingham are going to drop, and I feel like that's the inevitable outcome because they still are in the Europa League, so it's going to be hard for them to focus on Premier League and Europa League. Could you see a world where they get relegated, Tottenham Hotspur?
I think so.
You think there is a world?
I think there is a world because they're not because I've seen footage of the new manager trying to manage them on field, and they're not listening to him. I've seen footage of that, so it's interesting to see that they're not listening to it. But how many points are they away from relegation?
They're 4 points away.
There's 9-10 games left. It's possible.
Well, looking at the form guide right now, like Nottingham Forest. Looking at the three teams that I think are fighting for it, I think it's out of West Ham, Nottingham, and Tottenham. I feel like Leeds are okay. And I feel like that Burnley can't get out of there.
Yeah, especially after losing that game on the weekend against Brentford, after not even picking up a point was what they needed. So
yeah. I mean, if you look at the table for Burnley, just quickly, they are in 19 points. So they're 8 points away. If they did scrounge a win, then or they scrounged a point, there'd be at least 7 points, which wouldn't be as bad. But 8 points is 3 wins. Like, at least if it was 2 wins and a draw, maybe they could, somehow do something. But I think that's too far now. But because I can't see Burnley winning 3 games for the rest of the campaign. So you were looking at the form guide right now. West Ham sitting in, out of the whole competition, they're sitting in 13th place with, from their last 5, they've won 1 game and drawn 2. So that's 5 points. Not great, but not bad. Then you got looking at Nottingham Forest. They are in 19th spot in form guide with only 2 points from their past 5, both draws. And then Tottenham are 1 draw from their past 5 games and no wins. And I don't think they've actually won a game since October in the Premier League, I'm pretty sure. That may be wrong. It may be November, but I'm pretty sure they have not won a game since October, which would be absolutely crazy from a team that started okay. I think they were on 15 points after the first 8 or 9 weeks. And now they're just down.
But this is how they've always started the last 3 or 4 seasons. They've started so well, and they can get crawled by injuries and everything.
But I mean, they can't. If they get relegated, that would be amazing. Imagine just playing at the big London stadium.
Did Tottenham get through the Champions League?
Yeah, they're through.
They're through.
They automatically got qualified.
Yeah.
So they're still fighting for that too. Like both Nottingham Forest and Tottenham are playing in European football.
which probably helps West Ham in a
Yeah.
way.
Well, I feel like West Ham have, like, even though they lost that game against Liverpool 5-2, you feel like they're going to find a way because they've hit form. If they stayed in that down form that they were in like 2 months ago, I'd definitely see a world where they get relegated, West Ham. But right now, out of the 3 teams that we're kind of expecting to be relegated, it's amazing to think that like West Ham, like, you know, they're usually a mid-table team, but not too long ago, I think it was 5 or 6 years ago, they were up the top fighting for Europa League. Nottingham Forest made the Europa League, and then Tottenham are in the Champions League. Yeah. It's amazing that one of those teams is going to be relegated. And at the moment, we're thinking it's going to be the team Nottingham Forest, who made a Europa League last year, or this season. Absolutely crazy. So that's pretty much all we've got, I think. Nottingham Forest for the relegation, we're thinking.
Yeah, I've always had my thought on them. I just think that West Ham find a way.
Yeah. I mean, it would be funny to see Tottenham go.
I feel like that would be funny. I think the highlight of any Arsenal fan would love to see them win the title and Tottenham relegated
That would be just their wet dream.
Yeah.
I mean, they'd want final match day to, as I don't know, Declan Rice nails the goal to give them the trophy or something. On the other side of London, they just have Tottenham Hotspur get killed 5-0 and just get kicked to the curb.
Yeah, 100. Any Arsenal fan would want to win the title before that last match day, and then every Arsenal fan will be outside of Tottenham's last game and just celebrate. You just hear the sound of every Arsenal fan chanting and hoping for Tottenham to drop. It'll be. That's how I would do it.
Yeah, I would be going there too. I wouldn't be going to the Arsenal game.
I would go to the Arsenal game. I would just be going to
Tottenham to see if they're going to get dropped. But anyway, guys, that's pretty much all we have for this episode of the podcast. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Of course, with football back, we'll be getting right back into the football content. So make sure to stay on the channel, subscribe, and all that wonderful stuff. We have been posting clips as well from the podcast on the podcast channel, of course. So make sure to show some support to that. If you do have a mate or whatever who you think may be interested in the podcast, but you don't really think they'd be following the whole thing, make sure to send those clips around, because that's kind of how I think we're going to grow this channel as well. But yeah, make sure to, follow, like, and subscribe on YouTube, and then on, Spotify. Make sure to follow and make sure to leave us 5 stars, because I ask super nicely, and that's why you should always do that. But thank you again, guys, for listening. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch you all next week.
See you later, guys.